Hi everyone, it's Judy here at River City Sewing, bringing you the third in the series of our Fat Quarter Challenge to use this beautiful, simply delightful Fat Quarter package. Now this Fat Quarter package, like we mentioned before, has 38 pieces in the package. So when we first got this Fat Quarter bundle and we were deciding to make a quilt, which was the first part, we took aside 15 Fat Quarters. And we used the pattern of the Violet Quilt. And the Violet Quilt is a Erica Jackman pattern, and it was designed to be Fat Quarter friendly. It had a number of different variations that you could have done in 3 different sizes. But I decided that one because it would showcase that Fat Quarter fabric beautifully with the larger blocks. So that's the one we chose. And I made a mistake because I cut too many Fat Quarters into the 4.5-inch squares. So I decided to modify, as you do. You decide to change your mind halfway through and you want to do a different colorway. Well, I ended up with too many Fat Quarters, but that left me a little bit of thinking time while I was stitching together the quilt of what I was going to do with those other blocks. So that quilt, the quilt, I decided that I was going to put a backing on it once it was completed. And I did use the Fat Quarters in this bundle, plus I also used a jelly roll from Kona, and it was just white Kona. And that saved me from having to cut the 2.5-inch strips. And then I used all of that extra jelly roll in the other projects as well. So it gave me a white that I could continue to use through my other projects. So the quilt went together really easily. It was beautifully, it went together beautifully. We put the bubble backing on the back, and we reused some leftover wadding that we had offcuts and bits and pieces here. We had enough to do that quilt in one go. And we put what we call a lollipop binding on. So for those of you that don't know what a lollipop binding is where all those elements in the quilt, and you have 2.5-inch strips of all the different color fabrics that you have in the quilt, you join them together and that becomes a bit like a lollipop swirl. So then you go around the quilt and you bind it with the fabric that's inside. I decided I didn't want a white border for this quilt. I wanted it to be quite modern and have the lollipop border. So those kinds of things you can sort of think about as you're going through the process. So once the quilt was constructed, all sewn together, ready to go to be put on the machine to be quilted, then we looked at it and went, okay, well, let's make this lollipop binding with all the leftover pieces, cut them into 2.5-inch strips until we had enough to make that binding. So that was really good. We managed to use up a lot of that scrap in the binding for the quilt. We still had little pieces left over of those fabrics as well, so they then went in the pile to be utilised for the other projects coming along. But I'm sure you'll see that the quilt comes up really beautifully and is lovely to get up close to and have a look at. You can, any of these types of quilts that showcase your fabric in larger blocks will show your fabric and really make that fabric do double duty, not just being a colour but a part of the feature of the quilt. So I hope you'll like the Violet Quilt. We do have patterns for those available here at the store, so you can look for them online. Just type in the Violet Quilt and you'll be able to find that pattern. I think they're $17.95. So yeah, they're a great pattern, well written, and the instructions are pretty clear, except don't make a mistake like me. All right, so then that's the quilts done. So that's number 3 in our series. So until next time, we look forward to seeing you, and bye for now.